Hey everyone, it's Santomassimo with the Massimo Show, and we have a first-time guest. I've been a long-time fan. Folks, welcome to the Massimo Show, the one and only Kim Ford.
Hi, this is Rod Santomassimo, and welcome to the Massimo Show. The objective of the Massimo Show is to share how you can maximize your personal, professional margin. That's right. Let's make more money in less time. Let's turn chaos into clarity, confusion into confidence, and income into real wealth. Along with sharing my insight on how I grew a multi-million-dollar professional business, we're going to bring you the expert advice from a variety of authors, consultants, and thought leaders who will provide the tools you need to maximize your own personal and professional margin. Welcome to the Massimo Show.
Kim, welcome to the Massimo Show.
Hi, thanks so much. Sorry I'm in the car, but I am stopped.
It's okay. The podcast listeners, your audio is great. Kim, I know you as someone who's an SAOR, who's obviously a fierce pickleball competitor now based on social media. You're a pilot, you're an entrepreneur, you're a software developer, and you are one badass tenant rep. Is that fair to say?
Maybe. I think badass tenant rep might work, and it's been 25 years of that. So I would probably say maybe I've earned badass by now. Maybe.
Earned badass. Kim, I always ask one question we start off for those who, believe it or not, may not even know who you are, which is shocking. Who was Kim Ford in high school? What was she doing?
So Kim Ford was an athlete who realized that I couldn't make any money being an athlete. I was raised super poor, just had a mom. And I decided to work at Burger King instead of playing sports anymore because I thought it was more important to earn money. So I took the bus. I walked about 18 blocks down a huge mountain to catch the public transportation. Work was about 20 minutes away to get to Burger King. And I went to Burger King and I worked as many hours as they would give me. And then I landed a job at a Chinese restaurant closer to home and worked there. And what's amazing when I look back at my past is that Chinese restaurant in many ways became the platform of my future. And how I jumped ahead is I came out of high school and I had no opportunity for college. It just wasn't ever brought up. My mom never even thought I could go to college. It just wasn't in our cards. She made $16,000 a year. And so I got a job as a receptionist at a firm and that did recruiting, headhunter recruiting in the commercial real estate sector. So they focused on commercial real estate and commercial real estate construction. And I worked for the CEO who basically, within about 3 weeks of being the receptionist and secretary, and I had my typewriter, said, I looked at these guys, there were 25 men in this room, and I'm like, I can do what they're doing. This is not rocket science. And I went to the CEO and I said, give me a shot. And he's like, you know what, Kim, my guys, there are 7 highly habits of highly effective, all these, he came up with all these books that these guys do and all these things that there's no way I could do. And right when I just said, okay, thanks, Chuck, and I walked out of his office, I wrote down those books really quick. And that night I went and got every one of those books. And within a few days, I actually did an outline of every single book that he said of why I meet the qualifications to be a recruiter. And when I went back into like the huddle area, which is where all the recruiters were, they were all talking about the Trammell Pro Company, this major developer from Dallas, Texas, that was recruiting MBAs in Pittsburgh, and they were going to open a new office. So I slid my synopsis under this, and he called me in. Kim, come here. And he goes, you know what? This is unbelievably impressive. I love you. Like, this is incredible. He goes, but you know what? This is not a business for you. This just isn't. So it's really funny. I went home and I told one of my best friends, I'm like, I'm going to quit. And I said, but I am smart enough to not leave a job without having a job. And that Sunday, I read the paper and it had a job as a receptionist to the Trammell Pro Company. So I actually applied to the job. I knew who the Trammell Pro Company is because that's the hot recruiting arm at the time. And I interviewed there. And the guy who was going to be the president of Pittsburgh said, are you going to be happy being the receptionist? And I said, hell no. And how the Chinese restaurant comes into play is he hired me anyway. And I was a receptionist. And about 3 months in, he made me get my real estate license so I could schedule tours for him. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting in my office. And again, I worked for him for 14 and a half years. So very long-standing relationship, big Robin Ellis guy. And I just remember sitting there thinking, God, I could do what he does too. And I ran into my buddies from a House of Lee Chinese restaurant on Grant Street, which is our major downtown kind of business district in Pittsburgh. And there are 2 attorneys that I know really well from the Chinese restaurant. And they're like, oh, well, we need space. I'm like, well, I can help you. And I made more on that commission than what my salary was for the entire year. I hired a receptionist, and then I started going after major national telecommunications companies. I landed one opportunity, which led to getting basically the entire country. And I was in my maybe 21, 22. I could not rent a car legally. But so he had actually arranged for rental cars all over the country. I traced fiber, did very high technology switch facilities all over the United States before I could even rent a car. And I bought a boat. It's what you do when you make a lot of money and you've never had money before. And then, of course, I sold a boat, which was even the better day. And I never looked back. And what's amazing is a couple things. Like if I wouldn't have been at the Chinese restaurant, I wouldn't have ever landed that first opportunity potentially. And if I wouldn't have gone to the headhunting firm, I would have never landed that opportunity to know what Trammell Pro was, to even apply for that job. And if it wasn't for him giving me that opportunity. And then what's so funny, about 10 years later, I made a cold call to a metals company, and a big, huge company. And it was cold. The person answered. It was a woman. And I always hesitate. Women are actually harder on women than men are on women. At least it's always been like that for me. And just right away, just shut me down. We're good. Thanks. Hung up the phone. And I was a pretty good cold caller. I mean, I used to crank out 200 plus a day easy back in the day when we had a phone book, right? And it was weird. Her voice sounded familiar. And then her name, I'm like, wait a second. So I just called her right back and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, but is this so-and-so? And she's like, yes. And I said, did you used to live? And she's like, why? Yes. And I said, this is Kimmy from the House Elite. And so, but this kept happening throughout my life where all I did was do Chinese takeout, but out from the bar. And I met all these people that I just established relationships with. And so what I think is beautiful about this business is it's everywhere you go, whether it's the janitor, whether it's the housekeeper, whether it's the person that's at your grocery store checking you out. It's all about, right, being kind, trying to add value. And it's amazing how you can build an entire career in a market that is still to this day very heavily dominated by men, where I have no good old boys network. I have no country club network. I have no family ties that allow me to meet anybody that's a leader. So I've had to work so hard to build anything. And I feel like maybe I've earned badass. How's that?
That's absolutely insanely incredible. And I read a tweet today that said, I think it was actually said that there's no more important list than your Rolodex. I don't know who tweeted that, but I think it was you, was it not?
I don't know. It might have been. I think I did see that come across, but it's so true. And it's funny. A lot of people, I have young folks in my office now that know what a Rolodex is, but it's so true. And maintaining those relationships, staying in front of people, trying to stay top of mind. It's a full-time job outside of what you do for your clients and what services you provide. But yet it's what I choose to do at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock at night. Instead of watching TV and watching sitcoms, I'd rather go onto Twitter. I'd rather go onto these things, have conversations, try to learn something new. Because if we stop learning, we're done.
We stop learning, we're dying. Now, hold on, folks. We'll be right back with the incomparable Kim Ford. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more of Kim on The Massimo Show. Hey, guys, it's Rod Santomassimo, and I got great news for you. I have taken the lessons of the last 30 years, all the conferences I went to, and I packaged the best of the best aspects and even plussed it in a conference we're calling MassimoCon. It is going to share with you and give you direct access to 9, 7, and 8-figure producers, some amazing keynote speakers, and so much more. Oh, it's a live 2-day event in Dallas on November 2nd and 3rd. You've got to be there if you're dedicated to making sure you get in position to dominate CRE in 2023. MassimoCon is on, baby. You've got to get there. Check our social posts, check our website for your information. And yes, get there because only a limited number of seats left. Hope to see you at MassimoCon. Hey, folks, we're back with Kim Ford and the Massimo Show. So from Chinese takeouts, the receptionist, just one amazing 21 years old getting rental cars from her boss and building her business. Now, speaking of business, Kim, you've built a lot of businesses. It's insane. So before or during or simultaneously building an amazing tenant rep firm, one of the most productive and successful firms in the country, you are actually also a pilot. And I also read that you've developed your own software. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that happened when COVID hit was I think a lot of brokers decided to play golf or sit on the beach. And I just racked my brain on a couple things, like what can I do right now that can add value to stay in front of my audience? And it was tough. It was a tough time. And one of the unique things was that I decided to do was become a small, unarmed, a drone pilot. And what was really cool is what nobody shared with me was it's pretty much becoming a pilot without having to fly the plane. So I have to do everything else. You have to learn all the same skills. You have to take all the same tests, except for you don't actually ever get to be in the plane to fly it, but you have to be able to control it, understand flight patterns, understand everything. And so I started in this, and I'm so competitive that once I start something and I basically commit to it, I'm giving 110%, or I would have said no. So I had to pass that damn test. And it was pretty hard. My stack was about that high of what I had to study. I did pass. I was pretty pleased with my score. And I'm not sure what value that's going to create, but I did it. It was a good time to do it. The other thing I did when COVID hit was I had to think through, how do I stay in front of my clients? How do I make myself relevant? And I think a lot of tenant rep brokers still today, full service brokers don't have this issue, but tenant reps do. How do you stay relevant when your average tenant, it's 5, 7, or 10 years away? If I don't want to just call somebody, hey, it's Kim, hi. Like, where am I going to add value? And so one of the things I did was I thought through who my clients are and what I could stay relevant in front of them. And to me, it was leadership. And it's where a lot of people stop learning and stop growing. When you start leading a company, it's nobody's training you anymore. You're training everybody else. You're leading without any training. Like, you're pretty much tapped out. And so I thought, what a better way. So I basically came up with a media company called Evolve. And I started off with just going to my clients existing, their CEOs, and said, hey, what's going on? What does next look like for you? How's the business with COVID? What does the pandemic, how has it affected you? And it became this video podcast series that actually exploded since, to the point where I interviewed a woman from Hong Kong at 8 a.m. this morning. And we had a conversation about leadership. And it's incredible. And now they're coming from all over the world. And what's amazing is people now know who I am. I'm not soliciting them about commercial real estate at all. Right. I'm meeting them and building a relationship about something that they're passionate about. And that's being the best leader they can. And today, more than ever, it's really critical that we as leaders, we're listening and we're developing skills such as emotional intelligence. We're looking for ways to be a better boss, to care, to grow. And so I'm enabling that through our platform. And it kind of coincides with my husband happened to be a CTO for a pretty large company, and he does software development. So I kind of sketch out a lot of designs, and he does a lot of the coding. And we have been building a platform that we find holes in our own space. So we're building it for ourselves. And what's great is so many brokers that know me and know what we're doing. Hey, can I try it as soon as you have it ready? And we started with the most tricky component of our business. And you look at the life cycle of a typical broker and what they do for a client. Right in the middle is that financial analysis. And there's a few out there, but they're super in depth. They're intense. There is so much data on those pages that the average consumer doesn't give a rat's ass about that. They don't care. All they want to know, what's my monthly rent, Kim? Why do I have to have all these pages? What's my annual out of pocket? Show me how they're apples to apples. So instead of, it doesn't exist, a simplified version. So we decided to build it. And from there, we've built the components of the entire process. And so that our goal is ultimately to allow our clients to have a much better experience, not have to deal with email, not have to deal with anything, but not have to deal with large client files, to have transparency, which everybody knows we lack in this industry. Mm-hmm. And so we just built it ourselves. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Cheese and crackers. You don't give any cheese and crackers out of me anymore, but that's a cheese and crackers right there. So, okay, go Kim. Why your own firm versus a national firm? There's pros and cons with every one, obviously. I know why, just talking to you and hearing you, why that'd be impossible for you being a national firm. What is it about the boutique firm being on your own that really drives you versus being aligned with a national firm?
Yeah, so I ran the Pittsburgh office for Cressa for about 10 years. And Cressa was a great organization, really loved it. They were doing a heavy roll-up for acquiring everybody that was an affiliate. I was one of those people. And the roll-up just didn't make sense to me. And partly because at the time I was doing a lot of build-to-suit projects across the country. And what I found was the box that a lot of the national firms put you in, right? They have a box. And in that box is how they make their revenues and they're successful. What I found was the service I needed to provide my clients did not ever fit in a box. And I needed to completely adapt to what that client needed, not what the company did. And I have enough of a knowledge base, and I continue to learn every day. And my goal is to learn, even in a bad meeting. If you don't walk out of something from that meeting with an idea, you weren't listening, because there's an opportunity every meeting you have. And I think, to answer your question more than anything, being a boutique for me allows me, number one, and I know you know this more than anybody, Rod, I can make a decision in 10 seconds. I can take risks. I can say, you know what? Throw it out there and let's see if it works. I can throw that hook. I don't need 10 levels of approval. I don't need 2 levels of approval. I just said to my marketing person yesterday, I'm like, do it. He just looked at me like, are you kidding? I said, no, go ahead. I'm like, so what? If it flops, it flops. Everybody's going to say it's Kim. So what? Like, go for it. And so I think being able to go for things, think out of the box, provide more than just the service, provide what that particular company needed. And I know a lot of companies like, that's not how I make money. And I look at them and I think, you know what? I just helped that guy's daughter get a job. No, that's not what I do for a living. But you know what? Wherever that guy goes, he's going to call Kim Ford, and he's the CFO. Right. And he's probably going to be at 3 more jobs before I retire. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very futuristic. And I think a lot of people are just so short-sighted. It's all about the transaction. And I've never looked at this business as a transaction, ever. I don't count dollars. I provide the exact same service, which is completely customized to every one of my clients every single time. And no matter what their size is, whether it's a $500,000 fee, $1 million fee, or a $100 fee, it's the same thing.
Yeah. And Kim, I would tell you today, the way people do podcasts, folks listening, I personally like to do a whole bunch in a day and get them out. And so, Kim, 2 podcasts ago, before my session with Bob a few minutes ago, I was on the podcast with Carrie Wilkerson, who happens to be speaking at the Massimo conference in November. But she's also one of my many coaches. And her whole approach is building the business and life you desire, like guys. And her message is service, not transaction service. Man, you two are going to really click in December. I can tell you, November.
I can't wait.
But you're right. And one other message you said was, you're right. As what Carrie was telling me, I was thinking about doing something different. And frankly, I was mentally blocked. It's like, why am I doing this? I can't figure out what and she pushed me and said, Rod, what's the worst that can happen? I'm like, you know what? Screw it. The worst, I lose money. So what? Right? I lose. Well, I
lose money every day.
Who cares? Do I lose credibility? No, not you or I with our reputations. That's not going to happen. But people are afraid to risk, or they don't have the opportunity to risk. And so that's what's holding them back. Just the way it works.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I find that a lot of people in national brands feel like they can't speak, that they are a little bit concerned if they do something that's not acceptable. And many of it matters on their culture of like that specific city and that specific leader. But I've had actually quite a few people come to me and say, I don't know what to do because I feel like I can't even have my own brand because of who I work for. And my answer to that, unfortunately, is you're going to need to stay there and get a little bit of knowledge, because you can't just go out on your own and do something like this. You have to have, I had to know the business. I wasn't on my own for, 14 and a half years. And I really don't think this business, I'm still learning. I had a call this morning that I learned something that I had never knew in my industry. I think in 25 years, you learn almost everything, but no, it's every day. It just seems, wow, I never thought of it that way. Just unique situations happen and you grow from it. And so, yeah, it's a tough space to be in. But what's super cool about it is every single day is different. 99.9% of my clients are pretty incredible, pretty amazing people that a lot of them become friends. And every day you get to wake up and love what you do and you're excited about it. I just don't know how they don't teach this as a career in high school. Like, I'd never heard of this. Didn't even know it was a job, right? We only know jobs as nurse, doctor, attorney, right? That's what you have to become, an engineer. But people don't teach this, what this career is. And it's such an amazing opportunity if you have the right mindset, if you have the right desire to achieve results. And if you really just passionate, like to me, if you don't have passion, you don't have anything. Like, you'll never make it. Sorry. I probably offended a ton of people.
No,
I'm going to get those nasty tweets tonight.
Let's be careful, because you and I would both agree that national firms are really good for a lot of people. They are. Absolutely are.
They are great. And they're, you know who they're great for? They're great for, I think Coy is such a great example. I love Coy. We've become friends over the years. To me, he was like the first like king of social media before social media was even a thing. And obviously there's people that have taken that over since, but he's just so consistent. He's done a great job. But, he's told me a couple of times, like things that are challenging for him and things that are not challenging. When you look at what national platforms, they are everything. They're your marketing department. They're your accounting department. They're your brand. And see, I love all that stuff. That stuff like has me thriving. And so for me, I love to make those decisions and push those, be a little bit out of the box when other people they don't even want to have to think about that stuff. They just want to work with clients and do deals. And so it is not for everybody. Unless you really have a huge business sense and understand lots of aspects of it, it's really better to be in a shop where you can solely focus on brokerage. Because once you have your own firm, you are not solely focused on brokerage.
Not a broker. No, you're not.
No. And as a matter of fact, you're like a nurse. You're a mental health specialist. You become all these things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I started health and wellness and all these wonderful buzzwords that leaders have to deal with today. It's all relevant. All of
But
it.
at least you have an in-house CTO, right? You're an event. You're an in-house.
Exactly. For sure. Exactly. We
Kim, we got to let you go. But Kim, I got great news. You and I are going to see each other in November. Is that correct?
I can't wait. I'm excited.
So what are you going to share? Don't go too deep. But what are you going to share with the audience at Massimo Con in November?
I plan to share with the audience some really incredible ways to grow and build your business that is outside of the box, outside of what you're going to hear traditionally. And I'm excited about it. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Wow. Hey, guys. I don't think anyone's ever been on the show with such power and passion. Okay, Kim Ford. So happy we finally got to connect. Folks, Kim dropped a lot of knowledge. You know what I say? Knowing isn't doing. So take some of the knowledge she shared, apply it, just like Kim did from looking at, hey, what book was that? Go out and read that book, right? She's a doer. Kim's a doer.
Yeah.
Knowing isn't doing, but she's a doer. Until next time, Kim, thanks so much for being on the Massimo Show.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you soon.
Okay, folks, until next time, this is Rod Santomassimo with The Massimo Show.
I want to thank you for listening to this version of the Massimo Show. And please go out and share this with your friends, your colleagues. Heck, share it with your dog. Just share it. And more importantly, just give me some feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We all grow from understanding what our audience wants to hear. So until next time, this is Rod Santomassimo with The Massimo Show.